All right, that's fine. If I get lazy, I can sit down. It's great. All right, are we all ready? I've got a photo show for you tonight. Not those kind of photos. It's a kind of an impromptu talk about the remote station that I have at Manston, up at the Spitfire Museum, how it kind of got there, what it's like at the moment, and what I'm planning on doing it for the future, and how it's going to benefit some club members that might be interested in it as well. So, for those that don't know, Manston Airport, up at the Manston RAF, not the RAF, the Spitfire and Hurricane Memorial Museum, I have a remote site. And I have a mast, and I have a cabinet, and I have free power, and I have free internet, because they like me, because I look after their IT and their infrastructure inside there. So I volunteer for them, and they give me a bit of space free in return, which is a nice arrangement. It works quite well. And also the club benefits from it as well, which we'll come to later. This whole started back in 2017. I was doing some work up there. I was volunteering. We were doing a special event. And they came and grabbed me and they said, "Oh, we've got some internet problems. Can you have a look?" So I went and had a look, and then I went back and had a look, and then I spent about 8 hours there having a look, and then I spent about, over the course of 3 months, about 5 days there having a look, and I sorted it all out for them. And I said, "Oh, it'd be great if we could put, a big antenna up here." And the manager back then, Matt, he said, "Yeah, no problem. Put what you like on." And I said, "Oh, can I put a mast on?" And he went, "Yeah, put what you like on." So I did. So I went shopping, and I found a mast. It was a 40-foot mast. It's an old 60-foot Versa tower with the top section missing. A lot of Versa towers, a lot of the 60-foot jobs. The top section is quite flimsy, so people load it up with big antennas, and then they put the thing up, and the top section folds in half. So they just throw that away and use the two lower sections. So it's a 40-foot tower. I picked it up from Medway, up in Strood, and it came back on the top of a Land Rover. just about. Just about. It was a little bit overhanging, but I've got the safety. It's all right. I've got the safety thing on there. It's fine. So a little bit overhanging. Yeah, it was quite heavy as well. It's not I do have previous for strange things on top of vehicles, mostly radio related. This is probably the biggest thing I've ever put on there in one go. We had another mast, didn't we? We had a 30-foot collapsible that was only about 15 foot long. That came back as well. I've had a fridge freezer on it and various other things as well. So, so that's how it came back here. And, we brought it back in 2017. I did other crazy things with my Land Rover as well. That's a 30-foot mast up at Manston by the picnic area. That was just, that was testing for repeater coverage from Manston, because we were thinking about sticking a repeater up there at some point. So I thought, let's drive the car up there, stick a silly mast up, and see who we can talk to. Nobody talked to me because it was 2 meters. So it went into my back garden, give you an idea of the size of it, where it laid there for a few months while I try and worked out how on earth to fit it to the side of museum. Because there's no ground post on it or anything like that. That's as it came. There was no wires, no winching wires or anything like that. So shortly after that, we had a painting party, and we had a few members of the club come round, help me paint it with some cold applied galvanized coating. And then we had the chief inspector come and inspect it, make sure it was up to standard. So it looks quite shiny. And then a friend of mine, not related to the club, but he is a radio user. He just doesn't come to the club. He's an engineer. That's what he does. He fabricates. He's a fabrication engineer. And he said, I can sort that out for you. I can weld some plate onto it, and we can bolt it to the wall. So he did. He also happened to have a massive trailer with a high-ab on, which would have been really helpful getting it back from Medway. So he took it away, and he welded some plates onto it, and he took it up to Manston for me. And we lifted it up with the high-ab. I have no idea if I ever have to get this thing down. I've got no idea how it's coming down because he doesn't have the high-ab anymore. So, so how very inconsiderate of him. Yeah. So we winched it up. There we go. And that's how we fixed it to the wall. We welded these steel plates on. And it goes through. So this is kind of a buttress that sticks out from the museum. And we went straight through there with M12 threaded rod. On the back end are, I think they're 8-inch steel plates that we're using to spread the load. And it's bolted through at 6 points, 3 different heights all the way up. So it's not moving. It's pretty solid. So yeah, we bolted it to the mast. Bolted it there. There it is, in all its glory. And that's it in its collapsed state. So you can see you've got the museum. We're slightly above the head of the museum, and that's it fully down. One thing missing was a rotator cage. There's no rotator cage for it. So I found a rotator cage, and we welded some fixings on to make it fit. Because obviously it wasn't the top, the internal section that gets us to 40 feet isn't the top section, it's the mid section. So there's no fittings on it for rotators or anything, because it's supposed to have another section inside it. So we did some welding work, and we found a cage and we fitted it. And then I had to found someone stupid enough to climb it. So me and Morgan, I don't know if anyone knows Morgan, 2E0UEX, was a club member, wasn't this year, but is coming back. But yeah, Morgan volunteered to climb it with me. So we climbed it and we bolted the rotator cage on and stuck the rotator on. And yeah, there it is in all its glory. Again, still in the collapsed position. You can see that just the inner one is just here, just sticking up, and then the rotator cage. That's an 8-foot pole on it, so it's 8 foot from here to the base of the antenna there. Just give an idea of height. So that's currently sitting, it's about, the base section's about 26. And then you've got the cage, which is another 6 foot, and then you've got the 8-foot pole. So you can all add that up. And then we thought, well, what should we do with it? Need somewhere to put the equipment. So I found a galvanized box, stuck that at the base, put it up on some dodgy brickwork. Worked perfectly. And for a while, we just had the box there, and we had the rotator controller in that. We've got a friend of the club, Ian Hope's not a member, is he? He's just a friend. We've got a friend of the club who is part of the Invicta contest group, who is a commercial electrician. So he came along and he took a spur off the museum for me. So we've got a 32 amp feed into that box, which is probably a little bit excessive. Run a few Bitcoin miners in there, it'll be great. So we've got plenty of power, which is nice. So we started using it. And one of the things we used it for is special events for the club. So this was a special event station. This is a 20-foot scaffold pole strapped to the side of it with a G5 RV off the top. I think that's actually the ZS6 BKW. You can see the ladder line there. So we strapped a multi-band antenna to it and just used it for that. And then we were down at North Foreland one year. I think this was 2018. We're in North Foreland. And again, Ian Hope, he's not 2E anymore, is he? He's M5IJH. He effectively donated a tri-band HF beam to us. And I went, oh, we'll use that at North Foreland. And as it was going up at North Foreland, as there's Paul standing there bravely looking at it, watching it go up. Everyone else doing giving the commentary around the back there, 7 helpers, all with brilliant ideas. As it was going up, I was thinking, well, that's a big antenna. That's quite nice. It would be quite nice if we had, put that up at Manston, have it on a big mast. I just thought it looked nice, because it looks cool, because it's a big antenna. And that was it from the thing. So again, we've got the ZS6 BKW up there on a 12.5 meter pole, and then the tri-bander. But it wasn't until that evening, the day this photo was taken, I got to use the radio in the evening. It must have been about 11:30, 12 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night. And the bands were completely dead. Apart from one station who I worked on 20 meters using the beam, who was a pilot of a 747. It was about 50 miles away from Casablanca, flying his 747. And I worked him, and it was a beautiful signal, and I tracked him with the rotator, and I kind of fell in love with using the beam, because it was an amazing contact for me, and it was really nice. So from that point onwards, kind of my end goal was to have a HF beam. And I was sitting at home thinking, well, I can't put a beam up at home. That's bigger than the roof of my house. It's not gonna work. And I'm in a conservation zone. I don't think the conservation officer's going to like it. Yeah, I think the neighbours are probably a bit upset. So I thought, I could stick it up at Manston, eventually get it up there. And that's where the whole thing about maybe I'll have a remote station kind of started. So that's what we done. I put it up at Manston just to see what it would look like. So there it is on top of the 40-foot mast at Manston. And so that's taken actually standing on the roof of the museum. So it's, it's quite high. And it worked a treat up there. We actually used it for a special event station. And it was amazing. It was really good. So it will get back up there eventually, and it'll be a beam on that tower, which is quite nice. You can see the airport in the background there. It's a lovely site for radio. It's actually quite quiet. There's a bit of noise from the cafe when the cafe's running. There's a bit of electrical noise, but the rest of the time it's actually quite quiet. It's even more quiet now because the main source of noise was all their network cabling for all their wireless access points. So of course I stripped all that out and replaced it with shielded cable for them. So there's no noise anymore, which is great. So yeah, so I control the noise from the museum, which is fantastic. I walk in and say that power supply is noisy. We'll pull that out and plug a different one in. It's really nice. Shortly after that, we decided we'd use it for 2-meter contesting. So there I am with our late chairman, Mr. Ian. We'd stuck a 2-meter Yagi on it. And you can see he's using a very high-tech radio there to make contacts. So we made a few contacts just on FM with a little handheld. The LDF 450 into the handheld is probably a little bit overkill, but it did the job. So we started doing the 2-meter UKAC on a Tuesday night. And we used the club call sign, and we put the club on air as a contest station. And it was really nice. Well, it was quite nice. Maybe not the first time, because that's how we operated, under our tarpaulin, in the little gap between the old porter cabin, sitting on top of the metal box. It was a bit chilly, but it was all right. We done quite well, and then we upgraded to camper van status. And I think this isn't your van, is it, Phil? This one, I think this one's Stuart's. Yeah, that one's Stuart's. But Phil would come up and give us his camper van, and we'd set up in the camper van and work 2 meters for a few hours and spend more time talking to each other than we did making contacts. But it was good fun and really nice. It was a really nice casual atmosphere to learn about how to contest and what's involved in it and that. And our kind of view was we were hoping to do that as more of a permanent thing. So if anyone was interested in learning how to contest or wanted to get a bit of experience, they could come and do a bit with us before they went on to the bigger station and run, back then 400 watts, now, 5 kilowatts. So we'll queue up here, yeah. So we upgraded to the caravan. There's another shot of the antenna. This is our safety device. This is a block of wood. That's the safety device for the mast. Because the mast doesn't have it should have a catcher plate on it to stop the inner mast falling down if the cable goes, but it doesn't. So I use a block of wood. It's just as safe in my mind, it's fine. I should put a catcher plate on it, really. I would like to find the inner section because I'd love it to be a 60-footer. That will really upset the airport. So. There's another one of a special event. So. Yeah, there's the van. There's Phil's van. Another one of a special event. So we used it for special events and all sorts up there. It's a really nice site, actually. It's a really good site. We did that 6-meter contesting. So we took the 2-meter Yagi down, put a 6-meter Yagi up, and we did a bit of 6-meter contesting. That was quite fun. Not interesting band to use if you've not used it before. Quite good. And we did some satellite hunting from there as well. Up there at night in the evening, lovely clear sky. Lots of horizon to see, and even a handheld Yagi worked really well. So we used the site for satellite hunting because we had power. So I could drag a power cable out and plug radios in and stand there in the dark and turn a little lamp on and work satellites. It was great fun. We did that for a while, and then my rotator started making funny noises. Started complaining. Yeah, the accuracy wasn't quite right. No matter how much orange I fed it, it would never work properly. So I bought myself a rotator that was hardly used, good condition, one careful lady owner. Yeah, as an elevation rotator. The guy swore it had never been opened, never been touched. Yeah, yeah, I bet it never has been opened. Yeah. So I went off on a side project and I stripped this down, rebuilt the thing. You know, looks a bit different now. Yeah, yeah. So rebuilt it all. So now I've got an elevation rotator. So I've got an azimuth rotator and elevation, which means I can put some big antennas on the mast and track satellites, which is nice. Then Manston were very well, they weren't very accommodating because they knocked down my building that I used to hide in. They knocked down the old porter cabin. They knocked it down and spent quite a long time rebuilding the building that's there now, which is this new brick building, which has got a community room, and it's a lovely building. But while they were doing it, I couldn't access the mast or do anything, so it sat there for a year and a bit, just doing its own thing. But they got the building up now, and we've got proper power back in, which is nice. So we upgraded the cabinet, put a new cabinet in. So now it's a really nice electrical cabinet. It's got double seals on the doors, so it's perfectly watertight. It's 19-inch rack mount. You can see the rack mounts here coming down the side, which is funny because the rack mounts actually cost me more than the cabinet. The cabinet, I think I paid £8 for it. It came from Paddock Wood. That's where we got it from. And it's got a little dent in the top at the back. So they couldn't install it. It was an electrical contractor and they'd ordered it, came with a dent. They couldn't install it. So they just got shipped the new one and that one was just sitting on the job site. So they sold it off. They put it on eBay and I bid on it and there we went. That came back in the back of my mate's van, not on top of the car. So, but the rack mount kit for it was like 190 quid. It's like, it's absolute madness. But it's great because I can put standard 19-inch rack mount equipment in it. It's nice and dry. It's alarmed and the CCTV up there, so it's all really nicely secured. I even put proper electrics in it. Look at that. We even wired them in for no more extension cords, all wired in properly. There we go. Yeah, so I've actually got two. I've got a 32 amp and a 16 amp commando socket to go on the outside, so we can jack into the power when we want to and not have to open it up, which would be quite nice. That's a full-way extension cord coming out of it, yeah. I'm an amateur, you've got to have extension cords. So that's how it sits at the moment. Inside it, just an overview of the equipment. Very tidily done. Inside it this is a three-way plug socket made by TP-Link. And it's a smart socket. It uses an app on your phone. So this socket I control remotely. So from my phone, I can turn each one of these plugs on and off. Plug number 1 there is actually connected up to a 13.8 volt power supply. So when I'm not using the station, I can just disable the power supply and everything's turned off. That power supply is hooked up to this multi-way power pole distribution, which feeds the radio and it feeds the ATU up on the mast and a few other little bits in there. It also feeds this, which is a SON-off 4-channel relay. So it's a Wi-Fi controlled relay, another app on the phone, but it has 4 outputs that I can switch on and off and I can toggle them. And most importantly, you can momentarily control them as well. So on the back of the radio, which I'll show you in a minute, there's an input for remote power on. So you can power the radio on and off just as if you're pressing the button on the front. There's also an input for remote PTT. And that's important because when you set the radio up and you tell it to connect to your remote control software, the first time you do it, you have to press the PTT on the radio to pair it to the software. So the software knows it's controlling that radio. So if you're not there, you can't really do it. So this relay lets me key the radio up remotely and it lets me power it off and on. And then we have the radio itself, a Flex 6300, all plugged in there and all sitting there nicely. And that's pretty much how it looks at the moment. All there, just sitting there. And it's all turned on and doing its thing, which is quite nice. I haven't really invested a huge amount of money in it, to be honest. I've probably put about £3,000 into it over the course of between 2017 and now. So it's not like a sudden. I know that might sound a lot in a big figure, but when you work it out, that's kind of a couple of £100 a year going back. It's not bad. including the radio. I mean, the radio was the most expensive. That was £1,000, just as a second-hand radio. It's not one of the latest ones, but it does exactly what I wanted to do to prove it actually works before I decide I'll spend money buying a more expensive unit, basically. And that's why it's all alarmed. Yes, that's pretty much how it stands. That's kind of the end of what I've got picture-wise. What we'll do now is I'll fire up the remote software for you, so you can see it and see how it all kind of works. There we go. So I use the Flex software on the Windows laptop. I use a Windows laptop, and I use a MacBook, and I use an iPad, and I can access it off all three of those. At home, I actually use my Windows desktop because I've got two monitors. And the nice thing about using this radio remotely is that all the control of it, all of the talking to it, all comes back to your local device. So if you want to run some SSTV, you run the app for SSTV on your local machine, and it does cat control over the internet to the radio. So a lot of other solutions, like the ICOM solution, for example, if you want to do secondary apps and things like that, really, you have to kind of run them with the radio. You have to have a computer at the radio, and you have to log into it and run it all locally. But this basically creates a big long data link between you and the radio, and gives you audio control as well. And the other really cool thing about it is it has unlimited cat ports. So you tell it you want a control port to connect up to WSJTX. You just click a button, it creates a cat port for you. Call it COM107. Point WSJTX at COM107, it will talk to the radio. If you want to load Grid Tracker up, you create another cat port, call it 108, point Grid Tracker at it, talks to the radio. They all talk to each other. So up there, they've got a business line in, so which I put in and manage for them. So yeah, so I section it off basically. I run all of their connectivity. And they've got some VPNs and some clever stuff going on up there as well, so we do all that. But the radio itself, just needs an internet connection, and it needs 2 ports open on the router at the site. From your end, you don't need a static. It doesn't need a static IP address. It doesn't. It can be on a residential connection with a wandering IP. Because what this does is the radio talks to the Flex servers, the SmartLink servers, and then your device talks to the SmartLink servers to say, where is the radio? And when you know where it is, you create a direct connection between your device and the radio, and you don't go through the servers. So you get low latency. So it's popped up a few windows there. SDR cat is where we create our cat control. We won't bother with that now. DAX, SDR DAX, that's the digital audio codecs. So that's how we move audio around. And again, you can create multiple DAX ports. So you can have audio coming out of your speakers, and at the same time, you can route audio through a virtual sound card to a different program or software, or you can stream it into YouTube and stream it live on YouTube. You can do what you like with it. You can create multiple. It's like having a big mixing desk. You can just send the audio from the radio anywhere, and alongside that, you can send any audio to the radio. So, if you want to play, a segment of the buzzer on 80 meters in the evening, you can. Not that I'd condone that, no. And then this is the actual radio here. So we're just going to hit connect. It might be quite loud. Let's see. And that should just connect us up. I haven't done anything here. I haven't opened any ports up. I've literally just bought this laptop from home, joined the Wi-Fi, and that's it. Are we still? Yeah, we're still working. Cool. Yeah, so there we go. So that's what I see as my radio. So we're on 20 meters at the moment, and you can obviously see the waterfall down here. The signals that are coming in. We've got the spectrum scope up here. We've got what antenna? Yeah. So this is on. It was on an end-fed half wave, so it's on effectively 20 meters of wire, stretching across from the museum. And anyone who knows the museum, it goes from where the mast is at the museum. It travels away from the museum. It goes over the top of Memorial Gardens to a 20-foot pole the other side of the Memorial Gardens. It used to go above the museum, but it was far too noisy. So now it goes above the Memorial Gardens. And a bit more on that later. But the end-fed half wave was misbehaving. Didn't like 40, didn't like 80. So I've been up and I've taken the transformer off, and it now runs on an SGC 230 auto tuner. Still doesn't like 40 meters because it's obviously a half wave for 40 feeding into the tuner, and the tuner doesn't like it. So I need to get up there and cut a couple of meters off it or something, and then the tuner will like it. So it doesn't like 40, but it loves 20, as you can see. 20 is all right. So we've got our frequency up here. We've got our S meter here. That particular device has two different antenna inputs, so you can swap between antenna inputs as well if you want. Over this side, we've got our power indicators here, SWR, power output. We can do tune power, so we can make it tune with less power than your main power. So I've got it set to about 30 watts here on RF output, but my tune power is only set to about 10. So when I hit this little button here that says tune, it will just give me a 10 watt carrier and send it out. So that's quite a nice little feature. MOX is one of the audio sources. So MOX is the mic audio source. I'll stand out the way there so you can see. So if I click the MOX button, it will take audio from the mic on the laptop and send it up to the radio. DAX here will take audio from that digital audio program and send that up. You can do monitoring, so we can hit the mon button and we can hear our signal as it's being sent out on air. So that's quite nice. And then we've got various other things for AM carrier. There's a few other things down there which I'll pull up in a minute. There's live RX equalization and TX EQ, so you can change your signal and all the rest of it. But it's a nice, easy, quite an intuitive to use program actually. Looks a bit similar to the ICOM displays. That's somebody on there. So to tune it, we can just double click on a signal. Let's see if I can turn it up a bit for you. So let's get rid of this one. Yeah. Okay. Where's the speaker on this? Okay. Okay, see, it works. It does the job, doesn't it? So, so we can change band. We can just go over here and hit band. We've got a bit of buffering going on there. I think that's the internet here. So let's go 15 meters. We can tune it. There we go. And we tuned. So we're on 15 meters now. And then we can bobble around on 15 and find someone to talk to. We can change the bandwidth. We can move this up and down by grabbing it. Drop it wherever you like. There's another one. I've no idea where they are. There you go. It's got kind of all the usual radio features you'd have. So it's got notch filters, tunable notch filters. So you can put notch filters in. I can zoom in on the signal. So I can zoom right in and see the signal. I can zoom out. I can see the entire band if I want to. So you can see the entire band, give you an overview of what the band is doing. It's got two VFOs. so I can listen to 2 different bands or signals at the same time. The limitation on that is if you're listening to 2 different bands, it drops out the band pass filters, so it's a little bit noisier because you're trying to listen to the whole 30 megahertz rather than just the band, like most dual VFO radios do. Second RX in there, so there's the second RX, so we can listen to two different sections of that if we want to. It's just a really nice to use, easy software actually, to be quite honest. And then we can change the colours on the display, all that kind of stuff, make it a bit more funky. I don't bother with that because I just want to talk to people. And then what else have we got down here? I don't think we can just scroll this down a touch. There we go. So there we go. So there we've got our filters. So we can change the filters. We can go down to 1.8K on SSB, or we can go 6K wide. So you can go nice and wide. So if you want to play with the ESSB boys, you like the nice wide frequency, this will transmit at 6K if you want. If you've got an incredibly busy band like this, what I found, because I've had a bit of a play with the SSB, and what I found is if you can't make any contacts calling CQ when you're 2.4 kilohertz wide, go 6 kilohertz wide, because then everyone will suddenly appear telling you you're wide, and you can make loads of contacts. It's great. It's fantastic. Go 6 kilohertz wide, and they all pop up and go, "Oh, you're wide," and you just put it down to 2.4 and go, "Oh, is that better? Yeah, excellent. Yeah, you're 5 and 9. Thank you. What's your call? Stick you in my log." It's great. It's guaranteed to bring them all out. Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. Everyone loves to tell you you're wrong. It's fantastic. So you've got all your filtering there, and then you've got RX and TX EQ down the bottom there as well. So you can EQ the audio. So if we turn RX on, we can adjust it to your listening pleasure. I'm not sure we'll hear much on white noise, but there we go. So you can adjust it. I don't bother with it. I just leave it off. Let's have a look at another band. It doesn't like 40, but we'll put it on 40 just so you can see how busy 40 is, because 40 is always busy this time of night. So there's most of 40 meters. We're a little bit wide for 40. Let's see if we can get the band in. There we go. So we'll zoom it in a bit. So you can see I'm manipulating the display here just to give me the bit of 40 meters I'm interested in. I'm not interested in the SSB portion, in the CW portion. Not interested in that. There we go. There we are. So you see this massive station at the top there, that AM broadcast station, absolutely massive. And because it's a standard radio, it receives everywhere. So we can disappear down to that, and we can have a little bit of AM. We can have a bit of AM. There we go, for your listening pleasure. So if you get bored and want to listen to Radio China International, this is the place to be. There we go. And the audio is actually, it does quite a good job of the audio. Very pleasant. Yeah. Don't put that on YouTube. We've got a copyright strike for that. You can always listen to the Russians, yeah. And actually, it does make a really nice kind of general coverage receiver if you're just having a listen around. It's quite pleasant. Let's try a bit of this. There we go. So you can drag the signal around here if you want, or you can double click, and then you can make it wider or narrower. You don't have to use these predefined presets over there. You can set them how you like, basically. Now I also control it with this, so I'll pass this around. There we go. So on Windows PCs, this has to be plugged in via a USB cord, and it's basically a MIDI controller. So it sends MIDI signals like musicians use to the computer, and the computer will map those different MIDI signals to functions in the software. So you spin the dial on that, and it spins up and down the VFO. You press it in, and then the buttons on the side become active, and you can change band, or you can change filter, or you press it twice, and it will change the tunable notch filter. So you have one button for doing lots of different things. So that's really nice. On an Apple laptop and on an iPad, it's wireless. It's Bluetooth. It's got a built-in battery, so you just turn it on and job done. You've got a physical control interface for the radio. Because a lot of people, I thought I would miss having a knob to turn. Pardon the pun. I thought I would miss having something to fiddle. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm not helping, am I? I've always had a physical radio in front of me. You know, I've always had buttons to press, things to move, and I thought I'd miss that. The only bit I miss is just the VFO, just being able to spin up and down the band quickly, making those small adjustments, and that works perfectly. That's really good for that. And the other thing I've got is this tiny little device. Now, this, the one that I've just passed around, did you see it all at the back? Let me bring it to the back. Pass it to the back. Pass it to the back. There we go. That's a little one. Don't drop that. No. That's a tiny little one. So this is made by my friend Mark Smitty, who is known as Smitty Halibut, who runs Halibut Electronics over in the US. And he made this for Macs, for Apple computers. It does work on a Windows, but it's basically a USB-C on one side and a 3.5mm headphone jack on the other side. And it takes a PTT input. So you can plug a foot switch into it, or you can plug a hand switch into it, and you can not touch the computer at all. You can just turn the computer on, just use the display to see what's going on, and you can use that little wheel to control everything, and you can use a physical PTT button to do your PTT, which is what I do. I put a foot switch in, and then I can type in call signs and do what I want in my hands while I'm talking, and it works really nicely. That control knob also has that input on the back, but if I don't want to take the control knob with me, I can just take that tiny little device, and away we go. The other thing that does, which will interest everyone that's using the outdated mode we know as CW, it takes a key input and it sends your key, I'm not familiar with the terminology, but it sends the profile of your keying to the radio, and the radio keys exactly as you're keying. It doesn't convert your keying into dots and dashes like a lot of remote softwares do. That takes your exact inputs and transfers it to the radio. So those that are into CW will know that that's a big thing, because it sounds like you're using the key at the radio. It doesn't sound like it's automated or been converted. It sounds like you're physically using the key. I think what they call it a fist. Sounds like your fist. There you go. Yeah, so it sounds like you're using it. So that's quite nice. And that little tiny device does that. So if you're a CW enthusiast, you can plug that tiny thing in, plug your key into it, and away you go. You get the power of a station like this, but you can use your key anywhere, which is really nice. Yeah, really handy.
So if you wanted to put 7878,
yeah,
can you just double click and write that on the pen?
What, for CW?
No.
Oh, for frequency. Yeah, I believe so. Let's have a look. 7878. Yeah, it goes in. Yeah, I guess. There you go. Yeah, you can direct input on it. There you go. There we go. Nice and easy. There was something else I was going to say about this. Oh yeah. So the other thing about the Flex radios is all the processing is done on the radio. So the radio actually has its own processor built in, has everything built in. So the software isn't doing any hard work. I mean, this is a 15-year-old ThinkPad. You know, this is a machine that, you know, I couldn't even get 50 quid for that if I tried to sell it. It's such an old machine. But it does this, no problem at all, because the software is so lightweight, because you're not doing any processing. All you're literally doing is displaying some images. That's it, locally. So you don't need a super high power computer to do it, which is really nice. And the app that runs on the iPad is just gorgeous. It's really good. I'll bring it in one afternoon, one evening, and show you that, because it's really lovely. The advantage of using a Windows machine is you use the Flex software. So the software we're running is actually from Flex. They give you this software for free, and they update it quite often. It's quite nice. There's a few things I don't like about it. It doesn't do keyboard mapping, so you can't use the spacebar for your PTT. You can't use any keys for your PTT. If you don't have an external PTT plugged in, you have to go over to here. You have to go up to here. There we go, all the way up here. And you have to hit this MOX button. And then you'll transmit. But you've got to press it, and then you've got to do your thing, and then you've got to D-key. And it's, you know, you've got to put your mouse on it. And if you've got your mouse on a different program, you lose where your mouse is. And yeah, I like programs where you can say, right, if I press Control and P, it will press the PTT, and if I press Control and P again, it will stop. I like programs that do that. The Flex software doesn't do that, and they don't do that for a reason. They've got their reasons. It's very complicated. I don't really understand why they don't do it, but they've got their reasons. But there's a chap called Marcus who develops the same software. So he developed software for Mac OS. And his software was so good that Flex basically adopted it as their own software. But you have to buy it from Marcus. You have to pay for that. It's a paid upgrade, effectively. It's like 84 quid or something. But you can run it on as many Macs as you want, and away you go. And it is a lovely piece of software. It's much prettier than this. I mean, this is nice, but it's much prettier than this. So maybe next time I'll bring my laptop in and show you that as well, which is quite nice. But yeah, there we go. So, you know, I think what I'm going to do in the future is I'm probably going to upgrade this radio. So I'm on the waiting list for one of their new radios. So this is a 6300, which was, when I bought this, this was it was one generation old. So they brought out the 5000 series. Then they brought out the 6000 series, which was the 6300, the 6500, and the 6700. The 63 being kind of the base range single tuner. Then they brought out the 64 and the 66. So the 64 was basically the newer version of the 63. And then a couple of weeks ago, they announced they were doing a new version, which is the 84 and the 86. So I've got my name on the list for an 86, but they're probably not going to come into the country until at least, I'd say, late next year. They're not shipping them in the US yet, and they'll ship US first, so probably late next year. But what that's going to give me is it's going to give me 32 different VFOs, so you can monitor every single band at the same time. So I can watch every single band on a single screen. It gives you two physical proper VFOs with separate bandpass filters. A bit like, exactly like an IC 7610. So you have two transceivers in one box, basically, which lets you do split working and things like that.
Am I right in saying the next model up from that, actually does 4 channels?
Yeah, so the 6400 did 2 channels, same as this. Yeah. 6600 did 4 channels. Yeah. The new one, the new 8400 does 8 channels, and the 8600 does 32. It's quite a lot, isn't it? Yeah. And you can split it up, so you can literally make a little tiny box up here and put this whole display up there and have like 20 meters, and then have another one with 10, another one with 12, 17. So you can watch all the bands at the same time, you know, just in case you don't get enough of watching waterfalls. But the main thing about their newer radios is the horsepower that's actually in the radios. So these are, I mean, this runs at about 70% CPU doing what it's doing now, which is fine, but it doesn't do anything fancy with that. Flex have this thing called a waveform plugin. So they don't call SSB and AM and FM, they don't call them modulation techniques, they call them waveforms. And Flex has a waveform plugin because Flex actually supply the US military. So the US military came to Flex and said, we want some frequency agile HF radios, what have you got? And Flex basically took their 6600, built in some extra EMC protection and done some clever stuff with it, made it wideband transmit, and they sell them to the military. And what the military do is they load up their own modulation techniques, their own waveforms in, and they transmit whatever they want, because it doesn't have to be USB, SSB. They put in Stang and all sorts of weird and wonderful different waveforms. But this doesn't have the processing power to handle that, whereas the new versions they're bringing out, when they're sitting doing this, they run at about 3% CPU, so they've got loads of headroom. And the waveform API is open source. So if you're a tinkerer like me, you can develop your own waveforms and play with your own waveforms. You'll have no one to talk to because no one will be able to demodulate you, but you can play with your own, you can experiment with it and do things like that. The API also gives you access to everything. So if I wanted, right now I could be recording this spectrum, sending it to a different machine, demodulating it, sending the audio to an AI, searching for a specific call sign, and getting it to send me a text message whenever it hears Eon on air. You can do all sorts of stuff with it. That's really cool and very scary at the same time. In fact, I'm sure he won't mind me doing this, but have a listen to this. We've gone off on a little bit of a tangent, but have a listen to this. I've got to find the right one because one of them has language which is not suitable for a club. Right, let's try it. My apologies now. This is a live demonstration. Have a listen to this. Now, hold on. No, I'm gonna. One sec. Let me just, because I really need to make sure.
Don't forget, you have got a wireless mic.
I have. Right here. Yeah, this one's fine. Right. Have a listen to this. Anyone who knows this person will instantly know who they are.
M0LMK 2E0 KSB, you're 5 and 9. Over.
Right, who's that? Steve.
M0LMK 2.
Oh no, it didn't play. Hold on.
A2E0 KSB, you're 5 and 9. Over.
Right, everyone that knows Steve, are we happy that's Steve Brett? No, that's not Steve Brett. That's an AI of his voice. He recorded his voice into an AI, and that is a computer-generated rendition of his. He's never said those words, and that's the AI making those words. But we all thought that was Steve Brett, everyone that knows him. So yeah, I might capture you off air, and so I'm going to put a new radio in there.
Again, a real world sort of use of the power of all that is that like where you showed the Radio China International.
Yeah.
Above top end of 40.
Yeah.
Obviously, Region 3, they use that for amateur.
Yeah.
So you can use the processing power of this to actually decode an amateur signal amongst that S9 plus 450 dB of Radio China International, and actually drag out the audio of an amateur operating, should we say, in Texas.
Well, the 8600 series has a trick up its sleeve, which is you can put it on that Radio China signal, and then it will take it and it will reverse it and it will apply the reverse phase to it and it will disappear. And you won't hear it. It will be gone from the spectrum. It's just gone. You don't hear it anymore. So if there's a station behind it that's very weak, you'll hear the station behind it, but you won't hear that. So it can do some really clever stuff. So I'm going to put a new radio up there, and that'll be really fun to play with. Very good. Lots of different antennas. I'm going to upgrade the antenna. Obviously, I'm going to put the tri-bander beam on it because why not? So I've got a bit of work to do with getting the rotators working remotely. That's going to be quite an interesting project. I'm going to put the 2 meter Yagi, and I've got a big 70 Yagi to go back on it, which I want to use for satellite tracking. So I've got some work to do to work out how to get those above the HF Yagi, yet still give them, full motion to spin round and point upwards. So that'll be quite interesting. And with that, I'm going to put some transverters on this as well, so I get 2 and 77s up there. So it'll be everywhere from top band all the way up to probably 23 sems. I think I'd like to go as high as. So that'll be quite nice. Anything higher than 23 sems isn't worth bothering with, really. It is, but the only person to talk to up there is Phil. So yeah, there we go. That's kind of the remote station, how it started, how it's going, how I hope it will end. I'm hoping that once we've got the 2 meter and 77 Yagis up there, I'll restart the 2 meter AC contests and the 77s AC contests, so we can go up there in the evening. I do have access to the actual main building itself, so the days of putting a tarpaulin up across the bottom of the mast and sitting out there under a candlelight are gone, I'm afraid. So no romantic candlelight QSOs with me anymore. They're all finished. But we got access to the room, which has a proper kitchen and proper toilets and all sorts. So that's luxury really, and heating, which is nice. So we should be able to do the 2 meter UKIC from up there all year round, which would be quite nice. And we can get the club at the top of the leaderboard again. We were I think we came, and the closest we got was about 5th, I think, which isn't bad for a 100-watt station with 3 idiots running it. So,
and again, that was only with
single
station,
single Yagi club station running. Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the idea of the UKACs, and the sort of thrust when Matt was sort of driving, doing the UKACs when we first started, was the idea that people were confident using it on the club station at Manston. Then when you got a bit of confidence, go home, have it and just running the UKC at home. So we all tally our points together. So the more members operating means that the more points the club gets. So that's the sort of the end game, is to get more people operating their own stations at home. If you've got the kit, if you haven't got the kit, then it's a case of going to operate, Manston, or operating if we have a remote station potentially here.
Yeah.
Having a club station here that you can operate remotely. So there's options. The more people can get on the air.
Yeah, the more people you can get for the UKAC, the better, and the more fun it is as well. And the more fun it is, and working 2 meter UKAC is actually really good fun. It's a really relaxed, chilled out contest. You can have a chat with somebody. It's not just 5 and 9. See you later. Some people operate like that, but we certainly didn't, did we, Phil? So we like I say, we spent more time talking to each other, finding out who was going to make the tee next. Yeah. So when we ran it before, it was very relaxed and casual, and it was a pop up, have a go if you want kind of affair. We'll probably do the same thing again, and it's just a nice environment to be in to learn how to contest, because it's a different way of operating, And sometimes in the UKACs we got quite busy, didn't we? Sometimes there'd be, there were stations coming. Well, where did we work? It was a real pain to work, but it was really far away. Wasn't he Switzerland? We worked Switzerland, yeah, from up there, which was quite nice. And there was another one over that way. There's a regular guy on the UKAC who's quite deep into Austria.
Yeah, there's an Austrian. There's also a French station that's deep down in.
Yeah. Yeah. But you'd work Germany into Poland, up and you'd work all over the Netherlands. Really nice path from there for 2 and 70. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the wire antenna. At the moment, it's on this 20-foot pole that's literally ratchet strapped to a fence post at the other end. I'm in the process of designing and building a tilt-over mast for up there, which will be about 40 foot when it's done. Probably never have it at that height as standard. I'll probably put it in and leave it about 25, 30 foot. But when we go up there to do a special event, we'll crank it up and get the wires up higher, and actually have a nice station that the club can use for special events and things again. And, because we used to run some fantastic special events from up there. It used to be really good. So, here we go. Any questions? Phil? At once. So, anyone who has the software will be able to connect to it. The way it works is it's tied to my account. So you have to ask me very nicely for my username and password, but then you download the software, you put my username and password in, and it magically appears as a station on the list of stations that you can operate. Now, it's tied to my call sign, but the radio is not tied to my call sign. So when you put the radio on air, it just works like a normal radio. It's just like you're sitting in front of a radio you borrowed off me. You just use your own call and everything else. And you configure all the programs on your own computer. You do all that. And that's what's great about it. The software is free for a Windows machine. Anyone can download it. I can share the login. I'm quite happy to share it with a few people. It's quite fun to operate it. And if you've got a really bad HF situation at home, if you've got a lot of noise, you can't hear anything, you can't put up a big antenna, this is just a breath of fresh air from that. It really is. It's absolutely amazing. I mean, you operate remote HF, don't you, Alan? And you enjoy it?
I wouldn't operate any other way because I live right in the middle of a noisy.
Yeah. So it's a game changer, isn't it? Completely opens up the hobby for you. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. So it's all completely open, and you just download the software and away you go. But Flex itself, this particular Flex and the other Flex radios, they have a very clever feature called multi-op, which means you can run it as a multi-operator station, so 2 people in completely different locations at the same time. Only one of you can transmit at once, and you can see on the software who's got TX control. But say, for example, I wanted to do a serious HF multi-band contest. I could pick somebody else like Ian, who is a serious VHF contester, who knows how it all works. And I could say to Ian, right, you log in at your house and you take VFO1 and work 20 meters, and I'll take VFO2 and work 40 meters, and that's what we'll do. And when I'm transmitting, he won't be able to transmit, it will lock him out. And when he's transmitting, I won't be able to transmit, it will lock me out. But we can work 2 bands at the same time. You know, you might say your strategy might be, I'm going to work 40, I'm going to call CQ and work 40. But if you're working 20 and you hear a rare station or a big point station, you request control and go and work them and get that multiplier, get those extra points, and then hand it back to me. So it does that as well, which is quite fun. So you can have 2 different people, 2 completely different places in the world, all using it at the same time. So, and the 8600, the new one, I believe that lets you have 4 ops with 2 simultaneous transmissions. So you can transmit on 2 different bands at the same time, which is quite fun. And they have really good filtering in as well. This one doesn't have they call them brick wall filters. This one doesn't have the brick wall filters in it because it's just a base model. But the brick wall filters of the newer versions, I think they're minus 70 dB on the edges of the bands. So you can completely get rid of anything that's outside of the band you're interested in. And you can move them inside the band. So one of you can be working 40 meters SSB and the other person can be working 40 meters CW, and you don't hear each other because the filters are that good and that tight. So yeah, really, really nice actually. Very good. Any other questions?
The audio.
Yeah.
So if you're sat at a laptop,
yeah,
and it's got a built-in microphone or
yeah,
whatever, that's probably not going to sound.
Sounds all right. It's got some audio processing built in, so you can use the default mic. Sounds just as good as if you're using a fist mic. Sounds just as good. I use a headset with it personally because I like headsets, and because when I put them in, I can't hear everyone else in the building shouting at me, so it's great. But yeah, you can use a headset. You can use either a USB headset that you plug in, because your computer just goes, that's a headset, and you just tell it where you want to route the audio. You can use your traditional, plug-in headset and plug it into the mic ports.
That audio then, Matt, so from the computer,
yeah,
can you get it that the gear that's at Manston is going to be able to change that? Or is it whatever you do here with the computer, the audio that you send is what gets transmitted?
So the audio that goes from the software to the radio is the raw audio.
Yeah.
All the processing, all the EQing is done on the radio.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah.
So it's all done on the radio. All the heavy lifting is done there, which is why you can use a 15-year-old laptop to do it. So you're not doing any compression, anything here. You're just sending the raw audio stream to the radio and letting that do the heavy lifting locally. You can even, not on the 6300, but on the newer versions, you can take the audio out the back of the radio, run it through audio processing kit in the rack with the radio, and feed it back in if you want. So you can do that. There's also a mic input on the radio. So if you're actually up there, you can just plug a mic into it and use it as if it's a real radio. So yeah, it's quite nice. Yeah. But you can also, if you've got the processing power locally, you can process locally and feed that into the software. Because the software doesn't take audio from the mic, it takes audio from where you tell it to take it to. So if I go into the software, let me have a quick look for you. So if we go into, I might have to sign in because it's not signed in. Give me a second and we'll log in. Might show you my top secret password. Yeah, that one. Shut up. Ah,
Wrong one.
it's because on all my devices it's all fingerprint, so I don't never touch the password in. So there it is. So let's sign in with that. And then I can show you the, there we are. Usually I don't have to log into it, but this one, for some reason, has decided to kick me out. So if you were having a go at this from home, this is what you'd do. You'd put in my email address and my password, and you'd log in, and it will log you in, and then magically, in a second, my radio appears. There it is. So there's the DAX. So I can go in. There we go. I can choose the station. There we are. So you can see I've got the TX stream here, mic, RX stream. So I get the audio streams from both receivers. So I can pipe one to the left ear, one to the right ear if I want. You can do manual diversity on this as well. So you can go on to 40 meters on VFO A and say I want that to use antenna number 1, and you can go on the same frequency on VFO B and say I want that to use antenna number 2, and I want to route the audio from A to my left ear and the audio from 2 to my right ear, and you can hear the signal moving between the two antennas, which is quite a fun thing to do. But down here, so that's the mic. I don't think it's on properly on this one, but you've got the mic down here, and then you've got IQ streams here as well, so you can stream IQ data as well, which is quite nice. But if you've got multiple mic inputs, you can just say use this mic, use that mic, away you go. Is it in here? No, it's not in there. It's buried in here somewhere. And then you can turn your TX off, etc., etc. Just wondering if it's using that one. It's because I've muted it, that's why. There we go. Let's bring some audio in, and then yeah, there we are. So I don't think it's going to show us anything until I transmit. But yeah, it'll take whatever audio input you want, and then you can set up extra audio inputs. If you're running some processing tools for audio on your laptop, you know, like you might be running a compressor or something like that, or an EQ program, you know, feeding it through something to make you sound like Donald Duck. You can feed it into that, and then you can feed the output of that program into the radio, and it will just send what you send it. So that's how it works with things like WSJTX. You just tell WSJTX that its sound card is the flex, and that's it. I don't know if I've got it on here. No, I don't have it on here. I might have. No, I've got nothing installed on this because I just use this for voice. But yeah, so MMSSTV, if you want to do SSTV, you open up MSSTV. It says, where's your sound cards? And Flex appears as the sound card, and you just pipe it directly to it. That's it. So you don't have to do any of this kind of virtual audio card stuff with cables and virtual cables and all that stuff. Don't have to do any of that. You just feed it directly to it. And if you run out of sound interfaces, you just make another one. Just click on the button and then make another one. So for experimenting and for playing around with digital modes, or even things like digital voice on HF, anything like that, it's a really nice solution because you never run out of ports to connect to it with. So, any more questions? No? Nobody's asked when they can have a go on it. There we go then. I'll leave it running, so if anyone wants to come and play with it and tune it, feel free. You know, if you want to put out a CQ call, you can use it. Just don't use it on 40 or 80, but any other bands, feel free to tune it up and try and call CQ. yeah, I'll just leave it running. There you go. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
That one, yeah. They're about £60 odd, massively expensive.